Hello, my name is Shoris Lyle. I'm the sports editor of The Saint, and today I'm here with Jenny, who's going to be running for Athletic Union President. And so we're just going to have a discussion about the manifesto. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me on.
So just tell us a bit about your experiences of sport in St Andrews since your first year up to now.
So since my first year, I've been a member of both the swim team and the hockey club, and I sat on the swim committee and competed competitively with them. Regarding hockey, I actually started in the 4th 11, so quite in a lower team in the club. But since then, I've then worked up, and this year I've been the 1st 11 captain. And I've sat on the exec committee as the captain's representative, which has allowed me to see how the exec committee runs, which has given me a real insight into how the club runs.
Okay, and why have you decided to run for Athletic Union President then? What prompted that decision?
Yeah, so it wasn't something that I've thought about all year, to be honest. But leading up to it, as the 1st 11 captain, I spent a lot of time at the AU and working with the different people, and I just really wanted to get involved. I really wanted to make a difference. I really think that my background in the two very vastly different sports gives me an advantage, and it really drove me to want to help all sports equally, because I see that there's discrepancies in how sports are treated.
Right, so do you think that that both experience in swimming and in hockey is what makes you the most qualified for the position, you think?
I think it gives me a different perspective. I wouldn't say it's what makes me most qualified,
right,
but I would say that it definitely gives me a unique perspective, and it is personally what drove me to do it. I think another thing that makes me quite unique is I've really tried to think about things that are realistic that we can do within a year, and really tried to not make promises that I can't withhold for the next year.
Of course. So when we have a look at your manifesto, then you've got several aspects covering a wide range of topics. I think the first one you comment on is promotion, and just about engagement and promoting things that the AU is doing. And you talk about in your introduction about promoting all clubs equally.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, how are you going to ensure that you'll make sure that all 60 clubs are going to be promoted equally?
Yeah, so I think this is a big thing that currently the Athletic Union hold the Saint Sports Media, and I think that's brilliant, and they use it, and this year there's been a massive increase in photo shoots and all of the above, but I think one of the issues with it is not all clubs are promoted equally, and they could do with a better platform in which to attract people to join their club. So I think social media is a great way to do it. I definitely think that that's something that can be used more effectively, and we can share all clubs. But I also think live streaming is a really low-cost way to publicise clubs. So whether that be we live stream games, matches, or even training sessions, just to get the students to know what's out there for them and what they can do. Okay, so in terms of what it's going to look like, this equal promotion, it's going to be mainly social media in terms of how we're trying to promote all the clubs. Okay. I think mainly social media. I think one thing that came up at the Athletic Union Hustings last night was this, beginning this year, to have this Saint Sport all one uniformed things like on Instagram, Twitter, and I think that is great because I think it makes us look much more professional. But also is when you type in Saint Sport into Instagram, you get every single club coming up because it all has it in their handle. Yeah, okay. Part of your role as Athletic Union President is being very open and approachable. You talk about an open door policy and meeting with clubs throughout the year. Do you think that that's something that's been an issue so far? You've worked with the AU as being on this committee you've talked about. Do you think that's something that needs to be addressed particularly? I think Tom has managed to have an open door policy this year, but I think he could have had better communication links and better accessibility through it. I think there's only so much we can do. As much as I would love to go along to every single club's exec meeting, like even once a semester, when you actually add it up, if every club's doing a 2-hour exec meeting for 60 clubs, that's 120 hours, which is a 3.5 working day week, which realistically, am I going to be able to do that on top of the other jobs that the Athletic Union President's going to do? No. So I think what's really important, and I think Tom has done it to a reasonable extent this year, is making sure that the clubs feel that when they have problems they can come to him, and then it's just checking in on them, because some people don't like approaching the Athletic Union President. There's something that comes with the title, even though we're only at most a year older, 2 years older, it seems a bit scary, but I'm hoping to remove that and make sure that people do feel that they can approach me. Because there seems to be a general sense of opaqueness about the AU. So going back, and that's been something that's been talked about by a lot of candidates. So where do you think you'll succeed where others have perhaps not been as successful, let's say? I think one of the things I personally have is I actually have a real desire and interest in a lot of sports. I've spent since I made the decision about a month ago that I was going to run, I've really tried to go out and watch a lot of sports, from anything from netball to fencing, and in a lot of them it's very obvious that I have no idea what's going on, but I honestly have a real interest in learning about it, and I think that's something that I have that's maybe up against the other candidates, that I actually want to do it, I want to learn about their sports, and I think just having the interest is going to make me more approachable and drive me to try to communicate better.
Right, okay. I think what's been a major part of this campaign, particularly as opposed to last year, has been the focus on student services. I know Fiona Murray talks a lot about it as this roof. How are you talk about it in two aspects, sorry. You talk about it as like a relationship between the student services and the AU, and also about the balance between sports and studies.
Yeah.
How do you think your approach will be different from others in trying to improve this situation?
So I think this is something that every year candidates mention and kind of try to cover, but I think realistically it is very difficult, and we fall behind a lot of universities on it currently. And I think it's just trying to set up the time to communicate with the Dole officer, which is also another one of the faculty positions, and student services, to create some sort of platform to promote and encourage athletes to use student services, and whether there needs to be education with student services of how to do that, because I do think it's different than the student services that are provided right now.
Right.
I feel that the way that, I think in a year it's not going to be perfect. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't think, but I think we need to take steps to start doing it. And the two aspects that I look at is, I want student services to encourage people who are already going to see them to use sport. And I know clubs can sometimes seem quite closed, so it's about opening up the clubs, trying to encourage them to accept people in that are maybe wanting to get in, but also just using the gym, because sport and exercise is shown to reduce stress and anxiety so much, and I think it's really important. But I also feel the other way that I look at it, as you mentioned, was for module coordinators and student services to understand the commitments that sport entails. And I feel if you look at places like Durham, the exemptions and the leeways that sport and athletes get are actually quite significant, and I'm not saying that this can massively help. I'm not saying, but it's about not just getting academic leeways and academic help that KPOD can maybe already provide us with, but it's about student services maybe providing a one session with one person who's struggling with actually their mental health relating to sport, and that's the big thing for me.
Yeah, so within that kind of framework then of what you wanted to accomplish before, making sure people are keeping up their studies and also performing at a high level, what do you think in terms of policy, in terms of, is there much do you think you can really do in a year, or is it more something you want to establish long term?
I think within a year it's changing the culture. So I think realistically in a year, whoever sits here next year isn't going to say, Jenny managed to do that. Like it's not going to be completely done, but I think it's a change in the culture and getting the incoming first years who are performing at a high level sport, and to be honest, any level of sport that's requiring time commitment, maybe going away for a weekend or playing 3 matches in a week, is getting them to understand that the help is out there for them, and hopefully we can provide that help. And I think that's the shift that needs to be made. So therefore maybe 2-3 years is actually just a whole cultural change, that people are accepting of it and there's no stigma related.
Right, okay, yeah, great. A massive issue for whoever's going to be, issue, it's a difficult word, but whoever's going to be coming into this position has to deal with the current kit situation, of course, isn't it? How's your experience been with kit so far in your time at St Andrews?
It's obviously we've changed kit supplier a lot. I think we need to look at a lot of things regarding the kit. Obviously when whoever comes in is going to be thrown straight into the tender process, because it will be done at the handover period between whoever's elected and Tom. And I think that's really important, firstly, to understand as the student body that we're not going to have a full say in it. I think yesterday I met with Susan, who's the new player layer rep, and as much as I've had bad experiences with player layer personally, whether it's been late kit, not appropriate kit, and I've heard so many other complaints, I brought them to her and she was actually very responsive. She had already met with 5 sports clubs in that day and had listened to volleyball, what they needed, and listened to fencing and what they needed, so she was trying to reach out, and I think that is something that I want everyone to know, that they are trying. They've sent out discount codes, they don't want to lose us. They they want to associate with the best universities in Britain, and they've just lost Bristol, and they don't want to lose us as well. So they are trying their hardest to do it. I think it's making people aware that Player Lair have actually invested £74,000 in the last 3 years in free kit, and I think part of this is maybe being misplaced. I think your hockey, your rugby, your football, they're getting a lot of the benefit from that, and it's about making people aware of that, but hopefully making it spread further. But it's all going to be results based. This doesn't mean that Player Lair is going to be here next year. I think we need to look at the other options as well, and whoever is elected will be on the board to decide who we think is best for us.
Right, in terms, you talked about some big clubs there, big traditional ones.
Yeah.
You talk in your manifesto about focusing on, I think, niche and specialist kit. Could you give us an example, perhaps, of what that might look like and how you tailor to that?
Yeah, so I think I met with the book president this week, and they've really struggled getting Player Lair kit that's appropriate for them, and it's been late, and it's because Player Lair promised something they couldn't do, and that's something that they very much openly admitted to me yesterday. They promised something they couldn't do. So it's all about, if we do go forward with Player Lair, or whoever we go into tender with, it's about working with them to try to have flexibility in the contracts so that they can work with specific sport clubs to try to get one affordable kit for them, and kit that will be the best for their sport, whether that's it won't tear or it's a specialist material, something that they can use so that they can perform at the best that they can.
Right, okay. So how are you going to make sure that, is there anything you think you can realistically do to make sure kit does arrive on time if we decide to stick with Player Lair?
When I brought this up yesterday, if we stick with Player Lair, she said that it is always going to take 8 weeks.
Right.
That was no question, but it's about them sticking to a watertight contract and not going beyond that. We all know kit's going to take a while. That's not a surprise, but it's about the pushing it back and back. I think this year, with Tom being in place, his big policy last year was to get rid of Player Lair, and I think Player Lair have felt quite alienated because of that.
Yeah.
So they've not had a real desire and incentive to work with us. Whereas with this new rep in place, I feel like she really had the desire to work with us and wants to. And I think she's from Edinburgh herself, so she said she would be up here once a month.
Great.
So therefore you would have a face to go to with those complaints, which is much easier than complaining over an email, because we can bring up with the proof this was meant to be here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, of course.
Where is it?
Great. The last thing I want to quickly address, though we're running out of time, is about transport. You talk about streamlining the booking process with our great new fleet of buses. I just want to quickly ask, do you have any indication of what the clear guidelines are that you're going to set, that you talk about in your manifesto?
Yeah, so I think transport theoretically should be an easy thing to do, but I think right now the way that it's booked and the way that we get the confirmation of our bookings complicates the process a lot. I think obviously we'll be getting a new transport person in next year, and it's working with them. It's a thankless job. It's never going to be perfect, but I think it's working to try to encourage clubs to book vans early, make a policy that they have to book it 2 weeks before they need it, a week before they need it, whatever it's going to be, in which the person that's going to get put in place can manage to sort it out. But also with transport, I think a big thing is getting the drivers in, and I know, and getting the tests done, and I think we need to make the tests not seem as scary. I think a lot of students are like, I really don't want to sit my driving test again.
No one
who wants to do that? So I think it's about making it a lot more accessible for people and make them want to do it to help out their club. I know in the past they've really tried to get 2 driving instructors employed for pre-season, but it's really difficult and it's failed in the past. So one thing that I really want to look at is making sure that within the first month all the clubs have an appropriate amount of drivers so they can get to the competitions they need to get to.
Great. Do you want to make like a final closing remark before we finish?
Yeah, so I really encourage everyone to vote in the elections, and obviously as the Athletic Union president, I really want to be as approachable and proactive as I can be to help every single club, and I want to promote all clubs equally and have a read of my manifesto.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Jenny. This has been The Saint reporting on the Student Association elections. Thank you for joining us.